Today's guest is Britney Gardner, who is the host of the Know, Like, and Trust Show podcast, and also the creator of the Be Seen method, which helps established multi-six-figure business owners craft evergreen content that nurtures their audience between launches. She basically translates humans and their messy feelings into a measurable lead-generating visibility plan that makes it easy to show up consistently. So, Britney, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And yeah, I mean, I love your intro because not only is it written in perfect reflection of somebody that does the work that you do, like it's very clear exactly what it is you do, but it's such an important thing for a lot of the guests that I have and the people that I deal with, where it's like, they'll hire somebody like you, or they'll work with a coach who does, what you do. Then it's oftentimes the head trash that stops that from being implemented in the right way. Like you said, right? All of their messy feelings and things like that get in the way
Yep.
of the actual implementation of the technical aspects of what you do. So, I mean, welcome to dive into that. You're welcome to dive into your story, but I just want to reflect that back to you because I think it's beautifully articulated and so well needed. So, floor is yours to add whatever you want to that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, as with any intro, right, it's always a work in progress. You change a little line here, you add a little something there, you take that one thing out because it wasn't serving you well. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it does accurately reflect what I do and how I work with people because, content is a kind of a messy thing. It involves you, like you showing up, you and like we said, all your messy feelings, and people resonate really well with that. So if people have, like, if my clients have trouble really putting themselves out there, we're kind of, you know, adding extra hurdles into the work that I'm doing that make it a lot harder to implement, for sure.
Got it. So, in that case, given that you're usually supporting people in this type of work, what do you feel like you need support with today?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I go through, well, I think probably everyone goes through ebbs and flows with how you're managing things, but my last year of like stuff has really involved with like how much time I have to work and getting done what I want to get done, and then feeling mad at myself for not getting done what I wanted to get done, and so on and so forth, right? So it's like, it's one thing to acknowledge that, like, those feelings are getting in the way of things, but it's another thing to actually deal with them.
Okay. So, if you had to be more specific, right? So, okay, time, things are getting done. I judge myself for them. Like, let's just throw that into the bucket of like the usual hurdles of, entrepreneurship, right? There's always not enough time to like get things done in comparison to the things that we want to build, etc. So, specifically speaking for you, like, how is this a problem for you?
Yeah, so specifically, I work on a lot less time than most entrepreneurs do. I say publicly that I work 20 hours a week. It's oftentimes less than that. Sometimes it's only 10 hours a week. And then I have to divide that time between, my internal business projects, me working on my business and working on client stuff, of course. And I have caps on what I can do with that. I have a special needs child. He requires a lot of extra time. Like Mondays, for example, I just spend in therapy with him. You know what I mean? Uh, could I find ways around that? I could, but I chose to have a child. And I feel very strongly that this is the time period that I'm in my life. And also, I very much enjoy working. Like, I really like it. It feeds me. I love the work I do. I know that's a bit of a cliched phrase, but I genuinely mean it. When I'm doing work, I feel like I'm being a productive and good human being, and I feel like I'm a better person. And when I don't get to do that, I end up being fairly resentful that I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. And that even though there's these other things in my life that I chose, I'm spending too much time on them and not on what I want to be doing. And all of that has nothing to do with like the money that I bring in. All of that has nothing to do with the actual business. It's just how I feel about things.
Okay, perfect. So, to just dive a bit deeper into that, right? So, there is this choice, right, that you've made out of your own values with regards to how you want to spend your own time and, your child and like what that means to me. in comparison to the work that I actually legitimately enjoy and want to spend more time doing. So the internal battle is one of like, do I got to choose one thing over the other? How could I do more of both? Like, what is the internal like cognitive dissonance that you feel around this?
Ooh, gosh, put that way. I would say the internal battle is I made the decision to have the second child. We made the decision. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say I. It was not a solo thing. I made that decision, assuming that I would have a quote unquote normal child. And, at the time, like my other kid was in public school. Now he's homeschooled. So, like, there's a lot of things that happened after these decisions, right? Some of them I chose, some of them I did not choose, but I committed to the idea of raising a child. And from like a human, like personal point of view, you don't get to take that decision back. Like that's a commitment already made. It's kind of like, someone who's, I don't know, like done something bad or committed a crime, and you're like, yeah, you can apologize, but like you still have repercussions for that. And I think that the fact that I just used that example tells you a lot about how I feel about this sometimes. But then there's like the category of the things that I want to do, like actual hobbies, right? And then there's the category of the work that I also want to do, that one, yes, provides an income, for my family, which is obviously important. But I tried at one point to just not work and just do like the mom thing and just really make sure that my children were supported as well as they could be. And I did not do well. Like I felt purposeless. I felt aimless. So like I need to work. I think that's fairly clear at this point. I need to do that for me as a person. But the time I spend working, despite the fact that it's doing good things, it's providing, an income for our family, it's helping me be a better person, keeping my mental health in good shape, right? Despite all of that, it does take away from the time that I could be helping my kids be better. And it's like this, I want to do both things, but I want to do them for different reasons, and which reason matters more, and which reason matters more today versus this week versus in 6 months or a year, and all of that. And never knowing what the right answer is, but still feeling like I want to lean more towards working more.
Okay. So to just bring it back to the original question, because that was like a beautifully articulated description and characterization of all of the things that are kind of going on internally, as far as like, okay, I'm observing my attitudes and my thoughts around these two seemingly conflicting things. What's the actual feeling of that conflict?
Frustration. Like I'm frustrated.
Okay. At what?
That I'm not getting to do more of what I want to do. And then it doubles down when I actually don't finish things in the time that I have allotted them. It doubles that frustration because I want more time to finish it. And I don't have that.
Okay. So I'm frustrated at not being able to do the things that I want to do. And I'm frustrated that I don't finish the things that I said I was going to finish.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that instance, the overarching feeling seems to be predominantly about the work. So is that fully accurate of your experience or no?
No, I mean, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated I don't have more time for the work. But the reason I don't have more time for the work is because I'm doing things that I have to do outside of work.
Okay. So I'm pushed and pulled at the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's leading to the frustration. What does that mean about you, or what does that mean in general?
It means I'm constantly having to make a decision that I thought I'd already made. Like, I'm the one that set my schedule, right? Like this is the day I work, this is the day I don't work, so on and so forth, right? But I constantly feel like, well, maybe I could squeeze another hour of this here, or maybe I could take them over here on this time. And I feel like I'm constantly having to juggle my time schedule. And I don't like doing that. I like just sitting down and doing something.
Okay.
I don't like interruptions.
Okay. So in that instance, what is it that you actually want?
What I really want is quiet.
Okay. So quiet in what sense? Like quiet, I'm not interrupted, quiet, I like actual silence. Like what do you mean by quiet?
Yes to both.
Okay.
No, I actually genuinely enjoy silence. I know like a lot of people will, go for a walk and like listen to a podcast or listen to music, or like I'll even go to the gym and not even wear earbuds sometimes because I just want, it's not silence. I mean, I hear people around me, you know what I mean? But I don't want that extra stimulation. So it is, yes, I want actual silence, but it's also I want quiet as an interrupt, like no interruptions. I can probably get 3 times as much work done in an hour than your average person if I'm not interrupted.
Okay. And what's stopping you from getting what you want?
Interruptions? I mean, just life, the husband popping in, he works from home as well. The 11-year-old popping in with a homeschool question. The idea that, oh, someone has to start lunch and we should probably do that because it's already 1 o'clock. Like, I mean, there's so many interruptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, a text about this from a friend. It's, I mean, there's solutions to some of this. Do not disturb works to a certain extent. But some things come through that. I turn Slack off when I'm in one of my like good work periods because it is like, I don't know why do not disturb does not turn Slack off on my computer. It's super annoying. I wish it would just be like a one and done and, cut everything off, but it doesn't. So I have to remember to, close the program, things like that.
Okay. So in that instance, right? Because we started off with, okay, so there's a lot of frustration about that I have to divide up my time. There's a lot of frustration that I'm doing things like to what degree can I do the things that I want to do? What I actually want is uninterrupted time. So, to what degree is your frustration about not having uninterrupted time versus these seeming value conflicts of having to choose one thing or the other?
So I feel like if I had more uninterrupted time, I would get more done. And then I would feel less frustration over not accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish.
Okay.
And like I genuinely mean it. Like I mean, you understand like context switching and how much like efficiency we
Hmm.
all, yeah, okay, cool. You don't want to have to explain that. So um I am very heavily affected by that just in general. Like if I don't get interrupted, I can actually do a lot of things, but I just feel like I don't get that in my life.
Okay. So, knowing that, knowing its value to your own experience, your own mental health, your own productivity, your own a lot of, dominoes. What's your relationship like to boundaries around those things?
I mean, I have boundaries set up where I can, people can only set up meetings with me during certain time periods, for example. But, I live in a house where, two parents work from home and I chose to homeschool one of my children. So that's a thing. And, when your child's doing a really great job at doing self-learning and, doing, completing the list that you've given him, and then they have a question about something and they cannot move on without having that question answered, like that's one of those things that just have to happen. Like he knows he's not allowed to knock on my door if I am on a podcast interview, right? For example, I always give him a heads up. Hey, for the next half hour, this is off limits. And he's actually really great at honoring that, but I can't do that for a 3-hour time period when he's at home doing school. Like that's not a thing, for example. So, other things I've tried are I did for a brief period, get up at 5 a.m. and do like a 5 to 8 a.m. like work block 3 days a week. And I was incredibly productive. It was great, but I was cranky and I was tired. It didn't matter that I went to bed earlier to make up for it. It was just, it wasn't good for like me as a person, even though it was getting great work quality in. So, okay, so that didn't work. So then I tried doing other things and it really just comes back down to, my best work time is unfortunately everyone else's best interrupting me time. And there's only so much I can control in that arena.
Got it. So What's your relationship like to asking for help?
From who?
I mean, in general, like
I'm
let's look at
cool
that.
asking for help. On days I'm too busy or I have to complete things and I don't have time, I let everyone know I'm not making dinner, and either my husband pitches in and figures something out, or well, like right now, my 11-year-old's making ramen for the two boys. You know what I mean? Like, help is good, you know?
Okay. So did you ever try asking for help as far as ensuring you don't have uninterrupted time?
I don't, I mean, outside of saying, hey, I really need to complete this, please don't interrupt me. I don't think I've done that. No, that's on a case by case basis. That's on like I have a meeting thing. It's not for me doing focused work time.
Right. So like just again from the outside looking in, obviously I don't
Hmm.
know all of the specifics and details, but based off of what you're sharing, right, there's a very clear standard and boundary of like when I am on other people's time. So I'm on a podcast, I'm in a meeting, etc. Like this is uninterrupted, like no, like there's no
Yes,
fluff here. Like that is a no-go situation. Okay. That same standard, and I know there's circumstantial reasons as to like why it cannot be perfect. Like I totally get that. And notwithstanding, but I'm just kind of exploring generally. That same standard doesn't seem to apply to like your own time, right? It's like
you're
a
right.
secondary, like this
Yeah,
is less important in terms of strictness and boundaries. Almost like my needs for uninterrupted time are less important than my needs to be professional with commitments that I've already made. So
that is accurate.
that was accurate. Okay. So
Yeah.
what lands for you if that's accurate?
I mean, it's a good point. It's something I clearly have not correlated before. Um, what lands for me is that I am honoring other people's time in my business more than my own focused work time. And I can see ways that I could probably at least try to fix some of that. I would come up against a bit of a wall when, if I have like a 5 hour period of workday on Tuesday, for example, and 2.5 of that is meetings or calls or whatnot, right? Then I only have 2.5 outside hours of that. And I can't embargo people from interrupting me the entire 5 hours. Then I have to like start piecemealing things out a little bit and make some decisions.
Right. So I guess what I'm exploring here, or just poking and prodding into, is kind of how you are showing up to these situations, much less like, okay, well, this is a tactical solution to your problems. Like, I don't know that. Like, I think that like you're more than capable, it seems, to figure that out should things be clear. So I'm just sharing that with you so you know like the
Yeah,
intention
no,
with
that's a good
which I'm
point.
asking these questions, right? So knowing that I tend to prioritize my time less than other people's, right? That's going to ripple into, okay, well then how well do I set boundaries, right? They're going to be reflective of that same lower standard. Similarly, that's also going to reflect with regards to how I ask for help, right? If it's an all like kind of just it is what it is, free flowing thing to like you can interrupt me anytime here, because my standards are lower for my own time, then I'm also probably not going to look for ways to ask for help to ensure that there are some constraints put around those times as well. Right. And I'm only prompting this to really just kind of get you to think about like what needs to happen for you to be at peace with, the decisions that you have made and how you want to experience your life. So anyway, I know that was kind of like a lot thrown your
No,
way. What's landing?
it's
What is it?
good. Yeah, it's good. I see the thread that you're pulling at. I get it. I I don't know what's landing. I can
Okay.
see the connective thread that you're like going like if this, then that, and then this, and then also that thing over there. I totally following.
Okay. Perfect.
Um, yeah,
Okay. And what's the feeling that comes up inside when I reflect that back?
it's still frustration though.
Hmm. So if you dive a bit deeper into that, what is the frustration at?
Well, it's this is going back into tactical things because I immediately start thinking tactically, oh, well, how can I fix this? Right. So I'm like, okay, so well, if I change this so that I was able to protect my time more, but then I'm protecting all of my time and then I'm not there for the family that needs me.
Okay. So would it be accurate to say that the frustration is at the guilt that comes from putting these constraints in place?
Yeah, I think that'd be fair.
Okay. Perfect. So what is it like what's the guilt about?
The guilt is other people can devote 100% of their time to their families, and I have chosen not to. That's it.
Okay. So I want to acknowledge you for diving into where the tenderness and the rawness is for this. Two, all of you is welcome, and you're in good company knowing that real things come up on this podcast. And then number three, is it absolutely true that everybody can devote 100% of their time to their families?
I mean, 100's not fair, but someone who is not taking time to work with clients is inherently going to have more time to devote to their families.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they also probably have more time for hobbies. They also probably have more time to commit to their, health and fitness or, whatever they're doing. It's probably not all devoted entirely to the keeping of their house, the raising of their children, the schooling, it's not, I get that.
Mm-hmm. And I know you intellectually understand that, and I know you know, okay, this is obviously the truth of most people's situations, right? But what I want to draw to your attention is your default snap reaction to that question was like kind of all or nothing, right? Which when I explored that, like I'm looking for, okay, so to what degree do you not have peace? Because there are parts of you that aren't at peace with the fact that things can't be perfect, that something about the situation isn't perfect. So what, if anything, lands for you there?
I mean, I was feeling just a lot of yes as you said that, right? Like the I am very black and white, like about a lot of things. And my husband's like all shades of gray. You know what I mean? So it's a good balance, the two of us. But I mean, that is my default. It's all or nothing. And I don't love that sometimes.
Okay. So again, thank you for allowing yourself to be honest and raw with that answer as well. What's coming up internally for you when you share that?
I mean, I don't want to. No, that's not fair. I do. Like I like being black and white a lot about a lot of things. Some things are just right and some things are just wrong. Not everything, obviously. Um, I clearly lean that way. um, it's like I want to perform at the same level in everything. And despite the fact that I will literally tell my child, we all have strengths and weaknesses. It's okay if we're not good at this one thing, or you need to practice more. I definitely don't apply that to myself. Like I know it intellectually. I
Mm-hmm.
know it, but it's like very much a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing.
Okay. And where else in today's conversation do we see that?
I don't know where you're going with this. Mhm.
So part of the early discussion about the frustration, right, was when I'm with other people, these standards apply. But when it
Oh
comes
yeah.
to my own
Mhm.
time, different standards apply. Same thing
Yes.
here. Different and more lenient standards apply for other people and how they show up and the gradients with which they show up. But there's much more harshness and black and whiteness when it comes to me.
Yeah. Because I should be better than that.
Okay. And how's that working for you?
Clearly so well.
Clearly, right? That's why we're here having this conversation. So,
Yeah.
just to be clear, I'm not saying that quality doesn't have its inherent gifts. It does. It is very good for being as efficient as you are in juggling a lot of very complex plates, right? It serves you well. It has its own purpose. However, if there are parts where that same attitude is not keeping you at peace, then you're running into the man with the hammer problem, right? It's like, this is the hammer I have, apply it to absolutely everything. Well, there's certain things where you need a screwdriver, right? So that's my invitation to you, is like this judgment, this underlying need to be, maybe perfect isn't the right word, but like it's very clear cut. It's either like this or it's like that. Why is it appropriate for other people to have gray areas and not for you?
It's not that it's okay. Um, it's not that it's appropriate for other people to have gray areas and not me. It's just that they see gray more often than me. I just lean towards like we do it this way or we don't do it at all.
Mm-hmm. So then
And
it's not appropriate for you to be in the middle by your own choice or otherwise, but it's not
I
appropriate.
just
It's
have
either this or that.
really high standards. And I don't want to do something if I can't do it very well.
Mm-hmm. So what's the alternative then? Either you keep that up and live in perpetual frustration, or you explore other alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the choice you get to make. Like, that's not up to me to decide. It's your life. You get to decide, right? I'm just reflecting back to you what you bring into this container. That's the choice you have with the awareness that you have right now.
Yeah. I get you.
Okay, perfect. And when that's presented as an option, what comes up for you?
Blech.
Okay,
Like blech.
so
Like that's what comes I mean, it's easy to say that. Um, like in a tactical example, I did not finish a piece of content that I wanted to finish for a client yesterday. And yesterday was Tuesday. It's one of my big work days. Today's Wednesday. It is not. I realistically won't even touch it today. I just know that. Did I miss a deadline? No, I did not miss a deadline. It's not that. It's that now I'm going to have to work on it tomorrow, which is going to put something else off. And that like perpetual low level worry over not finishing everything I wanted to accomplish tomorrow is now there. Right. So could I maybe not hit all the way to black and, have, hit to the charcoal gray area of quality on it and decided to be done? I could have, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not. And it's
okay,
not even like this is not a perfection issue, by the way. This is just a base quality. Like all pieces of content that I make hit these quality markers. You know what I mean? Um, so it's like it's easy to say that I can sit there and be frustrated, or I can decide to, look at areas of gray. But when it comes to the actual work I am producing, I don't agree. I will not apply that.
100%. And what I find interesting is that like your brain went to, well, it's either I decrease the quality of my output, or like I keep the quality and remain frustrated. Where my intention for you to explore that question was actually around your peace of mind. So let's just look at the same example you brought up, right? So it's like, okay, I didn't get it done. I'm not doing any work today because that's also a non negotiable. Okay, great. So I could have lowered the quality and say it was done yesterday, but I'm not going to do that. Great. That's being in integrity with what the value you provide to the marketplace. I think that's a beautiful thing. Right. But what I am okay with is accepting this low grade worry and frustration around that being there. So my invitation for you was not to degrade the quality of your work, but to consider, are there alternatives with regards to your lens through which you view all of these situations to provide more peace for you internally?
Um, I imagine there are, and I don't see them.
Okay. So what would you have to believe in order for you not to see them?
I mean, it feels like I'd have to believe that I have master of time, control, and space.
Okay, perfect. So basically, unless I'm able to completely control the circumstances, environment around me, then I cannot have inner peace.
Yeah, that kind of feels how I feel.
Perfect. So is that actually true or realistic?
It does not sound realistic at all.
Correct. So is it your environment that creates your inner peace, or is it something else?
No, I mean, it's always choices, right? Like I'm making choices here. It just doesn't feel that way.
Right. And what's the choice you're actually making?
I mean, the choice I'm making is I didn't get it done my way, so therefore I'm not going to do it all. Nah, 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 nah. I'm going to go stomp my feet. Like
Okay.
that's the actual choice I'm making.
And is that a fact, a story, or a choice?
Ooh, I guess that's a choice.
Okay. So why is it not a fact?
Well, I didn't actually stomp my feet. So, I mean, there's that.
Okay.
No, I mean,
Well,
it's
yeah,
not a
that's fair.
fact because it's not that I didn't get it all done. I just didn't get it all done. Sorry, that didn't make sense. It's not that I didn't get it done. It's that I didn't get it all done. Like I can choose to have peace over the amount of work I have accomplished, and I'm not making that choice.
Okay. So that choice is basically the story that you're telling yourself.
So it's the story, not the choice. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
you tell
Is that
me
what you
what
just
it
said?
feels like to you, right? So like the fact is this thing is 80% done. Like that's
Yeah.
a fact, right? Like let's just say for the sake of example,
Yep.
you go
Yep.
through
We'll
your
go with that.
markers, it's 80% done.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a fact. Like I can look at your workload and be like, I can point to it. That's a fact. It's 80% done. Okay, cool. Everything after that is the choice of story. And the story that you're choosing is the one that keeps you frustrated.
Okay.
Okay. Well, does that land or not? I mean, I'm reflecting it back to you, but you let me know if it lands.
I mean, I can see how that is the story I'm telling myself, but it doesn't feel like it's just a story. It feels like reality.
Right. And that's my invitation for you to really begin to explore these aspects, right? Because this all or nothing thinking, this different standards for different situations as far as like time allocation, etc. You're at the center of it all, right? Like the common denominator amongst
Common
all of
denominator.
them is
Hmm.
you, right? And you have evidence that you can experience both. Like there are times when my boundaries and me asking for help gets me exactly what it is that I want. There are other times that it doesn't. There are times where the gray area is appropriate for other people, but not for me. There are times when my all or nothing thinking works really great. And then there are times that it just keeps me in a perpetual state of frustration. So if the choice is, what am I going to prioritize? More of my inner peace or not letting go of all of these patterns? Really, the only separator between those two is the story that you choose to tell yourself about these particular circumstances.
So then what's a better story?
So why don't you try that on for size? What would be a better story about this 80% complete piece of content?
That's what I'm asking you. I don't know.
Okay. So if you try to come up with it, what might it be?
Um, I'm seriously at a loss. I'm sorry. Like I know you're
Okay.
going somewhere here. It's
That,
just not happening.
that's okay. So think of it this way. If the better story, instead of it having to be right or wrong, binary, black and white, what if it was a dial that went from your current story, and it was a dial that allowed you to shift 1 degree at a time to the next most believable story? Like the next best believable story is X. What might be the next best believable story for you?
So the next best, probably that when I get up and get working tomorrow, I don't immediately start worrying about the extra tasks on tomorrow's list.
Okay. So that's kind of a desire about what you want to happen tomorrow, like that I'm not going to worry. So I'm future casting that I'm not going to worry. So potentially, but if you look at it more present tense, right? This happened yesterday. Now I'm in low grade worry. So let's start with that. Like what's the actual story you're telling yourself about that particular task?
I just have a lot to do.
Okay. I just have a lot to do. And how do you feel when you say that story?
Um, I just feel like I have to condense more things into the same time schedule that I have. Like, if I normally have to complete 5 things in 5 hours, now I have to complete 5.5 things. It just feels like I'm compressing.
Okay. So it's overwhelming. There's a bit of the frustration is like it's
Yeah.
overwhelming. There's like too many things.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. So if you looked at overwhelm as a hyper focus on what's not getting done, how might you write the next best believable story around that?
I suppose it would be more about focusing on what's already been done and building from there.
Okay. So why don't you start with the story about that? So we
All right.
started with
So,
there's a lot of stuff not getting done.
mhm.
Go 1 degree into the next best believable story.
There's more to do, but we've already accomplished this. We already
Right.
hit the 80% for the numbers we're using.
Okay. Perfect. So go 1 degree more.
Um, there's only 20% left to do.
Mm-hmm. What else? What might be another one?
20% is usually the easiest part because you've already done the bulk of it.
Okay. Anything else?
20% is usually the fun part too.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I get to start with the fun part tomorrow. Like the bulk of it's already done, the hard work's already done. So I get to do the zhuzhing and the fine tuning and the fun part. And now at least I get to start with something that's good.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Okay. That last story, how did you feel saying that out loud?
that actually feels pretty good.
Okay. So it feels better in comparison to the first story you said,
Yeah.
right? Which is have a lot of things to get done. Okay. So initially you were like, I don't even like, I don't even know what to say. This is like what's the answer? So you got to the answer yourself. Like you got to your best next believable story. And did anything in your circumstances change in the last 5 minutes?
Most definitely not.
Right. So your reality is exactly the same as it was when you initially felt more frustrated. So what changed?
Just how we're talking about it.
Okay. More specifically, what changed for you?
The story that we're talking about it, the
Okay.
story I'm telling myself.
So to what degree is it the circumstances that are creating your frustration? And to what degree is it your story around the circumstances creating your frustration?
Well, that feels very pointed, but obviously, obviously it's not the circumstances causing it.
Okay. Well, I mean, do you believe that after this experience?
I mean, it's a good perspective shift what we just did. Like that is 100% accurate. And also, it just took us what 45 minutes to get there, and I would need some like prodding along the way, and that takes time too. So, did my circumstances change? No. Did my attitude about them change? Yes. And if I can keep hold on that, that's fantastic.
Right. So you just had an experience where you shifted essentially the experience of your reality. But let me discount that because it took 45 minutes and I already don't have a lot of time. So, like, what's the point?
I mean, not what's the point? It's
Okay.
not like I'm going to forget that we did this. Like, obviously, it's there. It's now in my memory, and it's something I can call back to when I am feeling frustrated, right? So I'm not discounting it, but this is one thing, right? Like this is one circumstance, this is one lived experience, whatever you want to call it, right? And the next time I'm frustrated, it might be about something different. And it took a little bit of prodding for me to get to that 1 degree story replacement. And will I do that naturally going forward? I don't know.
Right. Probably not. And the reason is, well, okay, we'll get to the reason, but how long did it take you to get good at writing content?
That's a loaded question. A long time.
Right. Is it a learnable skill to learn how to write good content?
More or less, yes.
Okay. What if it was a learnable skill to manage your thoughts like you were just prompted to do?
I mean, it is. It's a learnable skill.
Right. And when you start to learn a skill, what happens?
You incrementally get better over time.
Right. And in order to do that, what do you have to do initially? You have
Invest
to
time in it.
suck at it. Right.
Yeah.
And when you suck at things, then the simplest of things tend to take a lot of time.
Yep.
And that's the experience you just had.
So it took us this amount of time because I am new at this and therefore I suck at this. And over time, you condense that time down into much smaller increments as you build up the skills. That's what you're saying.
Yes, 100% on your end. And to also be fair, we spent a good amount of time just contextualizing this conversation. Right. Like it
Okay.
took a
Yeah.
while
No,
to
that's a
kind of
good
get
point.
to the clarity of, okay, well, what is actually happening internally and how is it playing out to get to a point where, okay, this is like a big linchpin in what's your experience is like. So to be fair, I know I'm being direct. I'm like, okay, you suck at a skill, etc. And that's not a personal attack. It's true for all of
No,
us.
no, no. Of course. Of course.
Um, but it's just what I mean is, yes, some of it was contextualizing, and then some of it was, it's like, I just don't really know where to go. Right? That was your first experience. Like, what do you mean? Come with a better story. I don't understand what you're saying. Cool. Like,
Mhm.
well, let's roll with that. And then you managed to get there, and you got there by yourself. That's exactly why I didn't want to give you an answer, because then it's a matter of, are you accepting my answer to your experience, which is never really going to work. Right. That's why I wanted to prompt you into it. So you yourself can have the experience of, oh, here are circumstances, nothing has actually changed, yet in my experience of them has suddenly shifted. I'm not saying, you're enlightened or anything like that, but that's one small preview of how much your day-to-day experience can be like if you learn the skill of essentially like thought hygiene in managing the story around what's happening. So what lands for you there?
You're making a really good point. I looked at the time and I was like, oh, it took us this long to get there. And it was not actually that. It was less than 10 minutes. Like once we actually got to it, which of course I didn't look at it that way. I looked at the whole container.
Right. Which goes back again, that black and white, right? Like that's the
Yes,
trigger
exactly,
filter
which
through
is where I
which
was going with
everything
that.
goes. Yeah.
No, that is true. That is a good point. And I do, in your emails as well, I do like the term thought hygiene because it very clearly describes what's going on.
Yeah. So I'm glad that that's landing for you. And just to kind of contextualize a bit more, the reason it's thought hygiene is like any hygiene, it's a matter of continuously doing it, right? It's not a one and done. This is now complete. Yes, that can sometimes work on limiting beliefs or certain like emotional stuckness that we do have, 100%. But then the next ongoing step towards that is really building your own capacity and skill set to exercise what I call thought hygiene, right? But it's really this process of getting good at not accepting our initial reactions, which are always going to be rooted in scarcity, or always going to be rooted in safety, like just welcome to being human, and owning the fact that we have two main powers internally, right? The power of choice, sorry, the power of observation to first be able to witness and see this as it's happening and get better at that. And then the power of choice to
Mhm.
choose a different, in this instance, story, right? So again, I know there's a lot being thrown your way. What's landing? What is it?
No, just yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, perfect. So does this, as far as like this container today, does this feel complete for you? Or is there still something left outstanding?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, perfect. So then why don't you just close us off? Well, firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge you for like really allowing yourself to be witnessed in this, right? Because especially for somebody that like tends to default to like black and white, a lot of what we explored here today has been in the gray area. So like I know there's parts of it that are like, ugh, like what, why did we have to go here? So I just want to commend you for allowing yourself not just to go there, but to be witnessed in that. Um, yeah. And then if you want to just close us off and let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you, the floor is yours for that.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, no, thank you for making the container to explore that too. Yes, bleh is my answer to a lot of great things, and that is okay. Um, but this was good, so thank you. Um, as to your second part, where people can find me, yeah, I work with I do content strategy, and specifically content strategy that can be created into an evergreen content plan for people who do launches, whether that's launching courses, in cohorts, or doing a group coaching program that launches in cohorts. Either way, there's always going to be a few different segments of your audience. Usually only 3% of people are ready to buy right now, and the other 97% or so can be divided into three categories. There's going to be the people who are never going to buy from you, and great, your evergreen content can serve them where they're at. And, it's kind of like a bless and release type situation. And then the next the next segment is people who were ready to buy, but for whatever reason, they can't do it right now. Maybe they have something going on in their life and they can't commit time to the program, or maybe it's truly financial. They just don't have the funds, but they were ready to buy, and they need to be nurtured in time for your next launch. And then there's the third segment of that, which is uh, they kind of want to buy, but they don't quite trust you yet. And they definitely, like doubly so, need that nurturing. So your evergreen content plan will kind of walk those two segments through the buyer's journey, allow them to get to know you, build up that know, like, and trust factor, and all of that. So those are who I work with: multi six-figure course creators and program leaders who love their people, but after a launch, they're kind of exhausted and they're delivering their program, and they just want to be able to lean on content they know performs well for them.
Beautiful. And where can they find you?
My website is the best place, BritneyGardner.com. And I'm also pretty heavy on LinkedIn these days. So same thing, Brittany Gardner. You can search my name. I'm sure you'll have it spelled in the show notes as well. But my parents were super kind and gave me a fun spelling for my name. So it's not Brittany, it's Britney.
Perfect. Well, We'll yes, definitely include all of that in the show notes. But yeah, Brittany, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for allowing yourself again to be witness in this way. I know it's super helpful for that, especially for the places that we did go to. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much.